Now, Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and what it means to be the wife of a famous star. After the blow that struck her unconscious in her room in a small New York hotel on the West Side, Claudia Vincent, Larry Noble's former leading actress, is now thoroughly frightened. For although she claims not to know her assailant, it's more than likely she's covering up the truth. For we do know that Claudia has tried in every way to sell her testimony at Larry Noble's trial for the murder of Oliver Wilson to the highest bidder. Right now, Claudia is nervous and ill at ease as she waits in her hotel room for a particular visitor. The cigarette tray is overflowing with partially smoked cigarettes. When she finally hears...
Who is it?
It's all right, Miss Vincent. It's Lester Jordan, friend of Larry Noble's.
Just a minute, Mr. Jordan. Oh, come in quickly.
All right.
And let me close the door.
Hey.
Oh, you don't know what I've been through waiting for you to get here, Mr. Jordan.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I came at once right after I got your message. Are you all right?
Can you look at my bandaged head and the bruises on my face and ask me that?
When did this happen? Have you had a doctor?
Yes, Mr. Jordan. And I was lucky not to be seriously hurt. But you can see that I was right when I told you my life's in danger. I had to let you know because I've accepted help from you. And now I don't dare stay here any longer. My luggage is packed and I'm leaving right after I talk to you.
Now, wait just a minute. You've got to explain this to me. I want to help you. I told you before that this is a case for the police. You'd better let me call them.
No, that's the last thing you must do. My life wouldn't be worth anything if you called the police.
But you might have been killed or seriously hurt.
Yes, Mr. Jordan. And that's why I'm going away.
But what about Larry Noble's trial? What about the testimony you promised to give at the proper time?
Do you expect me to give it at the risk of my life?
I don't know what to say to that. It's Larry Noble's life, too, you know. He's facing a trial for murder. If he's found guilty, you know what the penalty will be.
Of course. Haven't I stayed here in New York when I knew my life was in danger just to try to help Larry? Do you think I enjoy being struck unconscious by someone who forced my door here at the hotel?
Well, of course not, Miss Vincent. I'm only suggesting that there must be some way of protecting you and helping Larry when his trial begins right after the first of the year.
Oh, I've tried my best to think of a way out. I thought I'd be safe here. I didn't believe anyone followed me when I arrived, but... Well, you can see how wrong I was.
Miss Vincent, consider this point, if you will. As far as I know, you're the only person who can give an accurate account of what happened backstage at the Hamilton Theater the night Oliver Wilson was murdered.
That's true, Mr. Jordan.
You know the case that's been built up by the prosecution. They think Larry killed that young good-for-nothing fortune hunter because he was secretly married to you.
But I told you that...
Wait, Miss Vincent. You also realize that the police and most of the public believe Larry was madly in love with you at the time. That's why he put you into his play, according to the story. That's why he even insisted that you come to live with his own family on Long Island.
Mr. Jordan, I will not discuss my personal relations with Larry Noble. I don't believe anything is to be gained by that. I have stated before that I'm able to clear him of murder if I take the stand when he's on trial.
Exactly, Miss Vincent, and that's why I've done everything I could to persuade you to stand by. As you know, I'm one of Larry Noble's oldest friends. We belong to the same club, and a group of us have banded together to pay for his defense. You can't just walk out on him now, Miss Vincent.
I'm sorry that I accepted financial help from you, Mr. Jordan. I only wish that I could repay you now, but I can't.
I'm not asking to be repaid. I only want you to let me help you until the time of the trial. You may well be his only chance of acquittal.
And what would you suggest? How do you think you can help me, short of calling in the police, which I've already explained is out of the question?
Look, why not consult Larry Noble's lawyer?
Clarence Brewster? Well, I should think not.
Clarence Brewster isn't handling the case, Miss Vincent. I'm sure I explained that to you before. Larry refused to have him as long as his fee was being paid by Rupert Barlow.
I think he used excellent judgment there. I know only too well that Rupert Barlow wouldn't lift a finger to help Larry Noble. He only wants to look important in Mary Noble's eyes.
Well, that may be or may not be. Larry's present lawyer is Hubert Savage. He's a very capable man. And I think he might be able to give you the help you want if you told him your entire story.
Mr. Jordan, I will not tell my story to anyone until I tell it on the witness stand.
But if you insist on running away, how is that going to help?
It may help me very much. I value my life, too, Mr. Jordan.
Of course, Miss Vincent, but there must be some answer.
Well, if you can think of it, I'll do all I can.
I'll tell you what. Let me hide you away at my apartment here in New York.
Really, Mr. Jordan?
No. Please don't misunderstand. I have a good-sized place. There's an extra bedroom and bath, and I have a housekeeper. She's an elderly woman and very helpful. No one need know you're there. My housekeeper will take all messages. She can keep a chain on the door.
But what about you?
Me, I can stay at the Green Room Club and just come to the apartment often enough to make sure you're quite safe.
Well, I should think that would be most inconvenient for you, Mr. Jordan.
Not at all, Miss Vincent. It's by far the best suggestion either of us has thought of. I'd know where you were and that you were quite safe. You may be sure no one would get by my housekeeper. Now, does it strike you favorably?
Oh, I want so very much to help Larry, but after what's happened,
You'll be very quiet. You can rest. You'll be well cared for, I promise you.
Very well, Mr. Jordan. You're very persuasive. If you promise to keep a close watch and come to the apartment often, but just to make sure nothing's happened to me.
Of course, nothing would give me greater pleasure.
Then shall we leave at once?
Right. Oh, what about the bags?
Well, have a boy come up and... Oh, I'm terribly embarrassed, Mr. Jordan, but... Well, I'm afraid you'll have to settle my bill at the desk. These doctors and nurses have taken every cent. Now, you don't mind, do you, Mr. Jordan?
Lester Jordan frowns slightly, but doesn't rebel. As Claudia Vincent hastily takes her fur wrap from the closet and prepares to leave the hotel. At this same time, we find Larry Noble in the visiting room of the New York City jail talking to his wife, Mary. And we hear...
Oh, darling, I meant to be here hours ago, but I stayed on to make sure everything was all right at the house in Rosehaven.
Good idea, honey. How does it look?
Long Island is beautiful. You have no idea how lovely it is, particularly on the road from the station to our house in Rosehaven.
Yes, I can imagine. Matter of fact, I've been thinking about our home quite a lot these last weeks.
Poor Larry, I'm sure you have. And I want you to know that it's all in perfect order. Nothing damaged by this storm last month, and the whole place looks so friendly and inviting. I wonder if it's just being away for so long that makes it look so wonderful.
I always did think it was a pretty fine place. I wouldn't have made the trip back and forth from the theater every day otherwise.
I know that, Larry. I looked in the kitchen and thought of the many nights that I waited up for you. We had something to eat, and you told me everything that happened at the theater.
What about Larry Jr.?
Oh, he's very happy, being with his very best friend, Stanley Baker, and having his dog with him. He had a beautiful Christmas, darling. As good as it could be without you.
I wonder what the boy thinks about me.
He thinks you're away on the road, as you've been so often. I gave him the present you wanted me to get, and your love.
I hope the other kids won't talk too much, Mary.
I don't believe they will. I'm sure the Bakers will do everything they can to keep off the subject.
Funny how they've suddenly decided to be friendly again, after all the trouble we had.
Florence and Walter Baker are kind people, Larry. It's only that Florence got all upset when we...
You don't have to tell me about that silly romance between the Baker girl and young Taggart, who used to live with us.
Larry Jr. is staying with them through New Year's. I'll have to go back and forth as often as possible.
Don't wear yourself out, honey. Stay out there a few days. It'll do you good.
I don't want to stay so far away from you, darling. You must know that. I'm just counting the days till your trial begins. And you can come back home with Larry Jr. and me.
We hope.
Oh, it's bound to turn out right, Larry. No jury in the world could believe you killed Oliver Wilson or anyone else.
My lawyer doesn't seem so confident these days.
What makes you think he's not sure of the verdict?
Well, for one thing, Mary, he doesn't know how to reach Claudia Vincent. He thinks she may be hiding, or that she's being kept somewhere by the prosecution.
She'd better not try any tricks when the trial opens. If she hasn't had the decency to offer to help you, at least she can keep out of the picture entirely.
She might be a valuable witness.
She might, if she weren't too selfish to get herself involved. Let me tell you, Larry, I still think Claudia knows far more than she's been willing to admit. I'll bet she's hiding for fear she may be called to the stand and have to give herself away.
You're still convinced that Claudia killed Oliver Wilson, aren't you?
I feel sure of it, Larry.
Why? Because you don't like her? That's not very charitable of you, Mary.
Maybe that's partly true. I don't deny that I hate her, or that I've been jealous of her for a long time. But I think it's deeper than that. I think Claudia Vincent knows who killed Oliver Wilson and why. But I'm sure she doesn't mean to tell the truth about it. Ever.
Mary Noble's face flushes as she denounces Claudia Vincent. And Larry Noble is sorry he brought the subject up. But what is the truth about this adventuress, Claudia Vincent? How much does she really know about this murder for which Larry is facing trial? Well, be sure to be listening tomorrow to Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and her husband Larry Noble, famous Broadway star.